So hello again, my name is Harriet from Munich, Germany. And as you see, I'm sitting in my home office, I already said it. And I choose as a theme, how to become a mindful leader in agile times. And as I did this presentation already last week, now I want to, I want to emphasize more on the experiences we had with an organizational development project in Germany about agile transformation. Okay, how to become a mindful leader in agile times. I want to show you some slides and talk you through them. And I think we will have a break now and then to discuss something. So I wanted to start with a quote of Ellen G. Langer. I don't know if you have heard from her. She's quite a capacity in the world of mindful leadership. She's American, about 75 years. And her quote, which I like very much, is, "The successful leader may be the person who recognizes that we all have talents and who thus sees her or his main job as encouraging mindfulness in those being led." So I think for me, this is a very important sentence for the mindful leader, to encourage mindfulness in those being led. And here you can see her book. She wrote it in 1989. And the interesting thing is she talks a lot about mindlessness, what I like very much because it's not so common about mindfulness publications. Okay, the main takeaways from my presentation, I hope, is first context VUCA. Perhaps sometimes you've heard of it, and I had it in my an announcement. Then what does agile mean? It's a buzzword. Everyone talks about it, but what does it mean? Why mindfulness together with leadership? What do leaders do? Self-development for leaders, I think this is very important. Then, as I announced already, the Agile Transformation Project experiences, and then I hope we have a few assumptions to discuss. Okay, I'm going to start with Ruth Cohn's team-centered interaction model, because I think this helps me to structure my presentation. So the globe it's the context, so the world we live in, what is surrounding us. So and now we have this VUCA world. I explain shortly what it is a little bit later. Then we have the person, the I, myself, in this case, the leader we are talking about, and the team. And then as a theme, I choose mindfulness and agility as top themes for this presentation. Okay, and I want to show you a picture of which represents for me the VUCA world a little bit. It's an airport in China. It was clearly done before the Corona crisis with all these people, but this is the world we live in. It's very complex, very dense, very fast, and so on. Okay, context VUCA. This is an acronym. I learned who invented it. As many acronyms, it was the US military, which after the Cold War realized that the world has changed, that there is no black and white anymore. So we have the volatility. And with the Corona crisis, we know now what unexpected means. We have the uncertainty. Also with this crisis, we don't know when it is going to stop, when we can live normal lives again. The complexity. So this, I think it's very easy to understand. And the ambiguity, as I said, there is no more a black and white. There are mixed meanings. We have to live with compromises, with an area of gray. So you can't decide everything clearly. Okay, this is the context I want to know you about for the presentation for the mindful leader. This is this context VUCA. What seems to be the answer to that? So many people, and I took this quote from the Scrum Alliance organization, they say that it's agile is the answer. You have to be agile. So what is meant by agile? I brought to you a flip chart I did during this mindful leadership course in this company I'm talking about later. And therefore I try to understand what does agile mean. And it comes from a Latin word, agilis. And this I like very much. I had 9 years of Latin at school, which is normal in Bavaria. And I loved it. So agilis. And from this Latin, agile came. It's about skillful and quick and alert and easily movable, mobile, and things like that. And then also the Italian, because I love Italian. And in Italian, agile means light-footed. I like this. You have to be light-footed to be flexible and alert. And all this together, one needs to be present and awake and movable, bodily and mentally, to have the possibility to act in an agile way. And acting in an agile way means that you kind of cancel automatism, the autopilot we all have, and in some experiences it's very useful to have this automatism. When you put your hand on a hot plate, it's good to have an automatism to draw your hand back, but not in all leadership situations. So how to act, and we at our company Trigon Development Consultancy, we said agile is the second one, because if you are agile without being mindful, then it's kind of hectic. You do things which have no sense and you hectic around. So this is very important to be mindful. So I like this quote: the consciousness of the leader is the limit of agile. So consciousness, to act consciously. How can you do this? There is a mindful space between stimulus and response. As I said, we do lots of things during the day in this autopilot mode. And I think when we are mindful, we should be able to stop, to pause, to reflect. And then you can have a consciously chosen response and not an automatic one. So it's very important to learn to be able to stop and pause. And this is all about presence, being in the moment with the here and now. And I want you to have a little experiment, to have an own experience with this thing. And I want to lead you to a 3-minute breathing exercise. I'm going to have an alarm clock to stop the 3 minutes. And the thing is that when you are acquainted with meditation or yoga or other very mindful activities like I Ching or something, perhaps you are very familiar with this. But we always do this breathing exercises during our mindful leadership courses. And the interesting thing is, never ever say this has to do with meditation or something like that, because in company environments, they don't like this. It could sound esoteric or something. But if you ask the manager if they are able to really govern in their brain, that they are the leader in their own brain and can stop their thoughts, they are kind of intrigued and they want to try it. So we normally start with 3 minutes. Okay, and if you are not familiar with the thing, then counting your breath may help. So it's inhale and think 1 and exhale 1 and to 5. And if you are not mindful enough, perhaps you awake kind of when you count 8. Oh, I missed to go back from 5 to 1. Okay, start again from 1. Okay, and no problem if your attention strays. The thing is, you are mindful when you register this. Okay, so I stop talking and start the 3 minutes. And you can close your eyes or have them opened. That's not the problem, but when you have your eyes open, it's good to kind of focus on a point on the horizon or in front of you. Yeah, that the eyes do not kind of wander. This is not good. Yeah. Okay. So let's get started. I say to you when it's over after 3 minutes, count your breath. Let's do it. Okay, 3 minutes are over, so take your time to come back and orient yourself in your surroundings. I'm going to stop the presentation for a moment, and yeah, I'm very interested which experiences you made, how it was for you. So let's talk a little bit about it. So who wants to start? You can unmute yourself on the yeah. Okay.
I got distracted and counted to 8.
Did you? Perhaps because I said 8. Okay, and could you come back then to the breathing exercise when you noticed it?
Yeah, definitely. And I think when you kind of said, you know, come to a close, it took me a little while to kind of wake back up. Felt a bit fuzzy.
Okay. Good, thank you.
I tried it with eyes open and eyes closed, and
okay.
eyes closed definitely worked better for me. Less distractions.
Okay.
I became more aware at the beginning of physically what I could feel in my body, and then I found that the middle section, my mind was drifting and thinking about things that I'm trying to work on at the moment. And then towards the end, the rain started hitting my window, and so I became a sort of aware of the surroundings and what was going on around my body.
Okay.
So sort of 3 phases, yeah.
I did it with my eyes open just because I'm at work, so I felt a bit weird closing my eyes. But I definitely think, like David said, that for me it would be better if I could have closed my eyes, because I think that caused me a lot of distraction. But I definitely felt lighter following it, and just things kind of felt like they slowed down, which was good. So my mind definitely slowed down by the end of the 3 minutes.
Great. Okay.
Started with some trepidation when you said 3 minutes. I thought, wow, that's a long time. At the end of the 3 minutes, I thought, what, is that over?
That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah. So time definitely gets compressed or speeded up or something when you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and what I find interesting, it's only 3 minutes, because normally we say we don't have time to do such things. But as Sarah said, she could slow down a little bit. So I think it's a very good idea, and then when I'm going to continue my presentation and about leadership, how are you going to make really good decisions if you are in a hurry? So it's good if you have a method or something to slow down. Okay. So the next thing was the I, yeah, the leader. And I think we have many convictions and beliefs what is a leader. And I wanted to show you some photographs about what could come into your mind when you think about leadership. So perhaps the first one is a kind of a little bit older historical kind of leadership. And we have this more coaching style or facilitation mode. It could also be leader. This is Marc Aurèle. I don't know how you pronounce it. He was an emperor and a philosopher. And he wrote a very interesting book I can recommend to you. Every evening he wrote a kind of a diary where he thought about what happened during the day and what should be ethical for him to do. And it's very interesting because when you read it, you have the impression this is a person, not 2,000 years ago, but a contemporary guy who really thinks things like we all do. So it's very interesting. Marc Aurèle. Okay, or football. So take a little time and think about how would you complete the sentence? A leader is someone who. Okay, and I don't want to discuss this now. I keep it for our discussion at the end, please. So I don't know if you are familiar with Peter Drucker. He is kind of a management guru, and only few leaders realize that they have to lead only one person, and this person is themselves. If you can't do this, how can you lead others? Okay, what do leaders do? And I took out from books and management and everything. What is the common knowledge? What leaders do? They create a vision. They lead people, obviously. They have to work with customers. Or have at least customers in mind. They have to build the organization. If they are pioneers or startup managers, they really have to build the organization, and they have to manage processes. They should take responsibility for results and costs. And the costs now in the Corona crisis time, it's something to take responsibility. So, and they should think about future. And it's very interesting that managers have a very time span. There are managers who are really visionary and they can think 20 years in front, and others, they can only think 3 months ahead. Oh, very interesting to also to have an idea what is my time span. But normally, so this is, if a person is able to do all this at a very good standard, it's kind of a super leader. Perhaps you know about the the hero. And in these hard times, people are kind of searching for a hero. People in Bavaria now are very happy with our minister president, because he now is the leader who, and says something and decides. And okay. Okay, but what do agile and mindful leaders do? Do they other things, or do they the same things? And I think the important idea is that they help to develop a shared vision. It's not only their vision, it has to be a vision shared by all the team members. And from the studies we have about agile leaders, it's very important that they help the people to understand how they fit in, into the plan, what's their part of everything. Okay, they still have to lead people, but perhaps with another mindset, more a coaching mindset. In the agile terminology, they talk about servant leadership. So help the employees to do their thing, kind of like Lao Tse said once, the good leader goes behind his people. So you still have to work with customers, but in agile companies, it's very important to invite clients to participate, even when creating the product. They still have to build the organization and manage processes. But I think it's even more important when they establish a learning organization that fail early is allowed, that you have this culture where people can experiment and be innovative. So they still have responsibility for results and costs, but it's very important to share this responsibility. We talk about flat hierarchies where the responsibility is more on the shop floor than up in the tower. So I worked for BMW for many years, so it was our tower where on the last floor the board members had their offices. And they still have to create the future of the business, but not alone, so together with others. And they have to care about themselves. You remember the quote from Peter Drucker, care about self-development. You have to know how to lead yourself. Okay, so I want to give some impulses about this self-development. And it's about to be self-aware. It's okay, you all know that it's important to assess your strength and know in which areas of development you have to work. But it's also about to understand why I do what I do. So what are my motivations for doing things? And very important is to know more about what your effect is on other people. So I think as a coach, I sometimes have the situation that the client says, my superior said I had to have coaching lessons because my employees are not satisfied with my leadership style. And I don't know what I could change. So the next thing is to be self-confident, but in a way that you allow yourself to be to make mistakes, to yeah, to allow yourself to be not perfect, and learn to be yourself's best friend in very difficult situations, and could always help to be optimistic. Even I think in these times it's very hard to be optimistic because nobody knows how things are going to be. Okay. It's important to be self-motivated, and we think that working only for money, it does not fill your soul somehow. So you need some other reasons for it. It's so important to have this shared vision and to be kind of persistent in following your goals and objectives. I think this is, I'm from Munich, obviously, that is our football club, Bayern München. I think first of all, it is very important to know when is it good and fruitful that I show emotions, when it is really good and when it is kind of destructive. So I don't say that one should not show emotions, but that one should be able to control the emotions, to stop reactive behavior, as we said, as I said before, with this pause and reflect time. And yeah, I think it's a fine line between creating trust by showing emotions and the opposite. So I think it's very important for a leader also to be empathetic. There is all these books about emotional intelligence. Read about this. And as we all learned during the COVID crisis, that it's very hard for people if they can no longer be touched or encouraged. And to be empathetic also means to place oneself in the other person's position or shoes, to kind of feel. Therefore, as a coach, I really love doing role plays with the clients, that they can feel in the position of the other person, how it feels. And to be resilient. And it's the ability to control emotionally stressful situations. And we are very deeply convinced that doing mindful exercises on a regular basis helps you to be more resilient. If you have this ability to stop and think and reflect. Okay, a little overview. I think everybody can kind of tick boxes. Do I have this, or to what degree am I able to control my emotions, or am I really resilient? I doubt it sometimes. Okay, so this was my section about the leader, the mindful leader, the agile leader. And now let's go on, let's move on to the experiences from our Agile Transformation Project, which we did at the subsidiary of a multinational company. And it's very difficult to have to really have a change to an agile mindset when the rest of the company or also the customers work in the way we did for years. So some companies try to create new startups where they kind of test agile mindset and projects, but in our project they did it in one subsidiary of the big company. Okay, so I wanted to share with you my experiences. So we did many things in this Agile Transformation Project. It started that this subsidiary should be closed down because not enough turnover and things like that, and people were scared that they lose their job and that they had problems and things like that. And then one of my colleagues tried to convince the members of the board that this should be a good test case for an Agile Transformation Project. And so we started with a town hall meeting. So this were about 600 people in one room. They had a huge production hall, which was no longer functioning because they had to stop this production. And so everybody was in one room and all were involved and all heard real time what the management was saying and things like that. And they could ask questions during a virtual tool. And this, I think this was a very good kickoff to get all in one town hall. And we did this during the project, I think 3 or 4 times to have this milestones, the next town hall meeting. Then it was a great help to develop shared visions, because when we had this town hall meetings, we had kind of World Cafe desks where on every desk there was a facilitator, and then when the management announced something about the visions, then we could discuss them, ask questions, so that everybody had the impression it's not only an idea on a PowerPoint presentation, but it's really meant. Then we had to establish a common idea what Agile really means, because people had the impression that Agile only means to cut costs, to be more efficient with less people, and to do things faster and faster and faster. And then we learned that Agile in this organization, first of all, should mean to learn to be mindful, to make better decisions. Then we had to challenge the idea that people thought leaders are only the higher ups. And with this idea that everyone can be a leader, and if I don't have to lead other people, I always have to lead myself. So everyone is a leader, and so everyone has to train to be a leader. And then we did these courses. We learned, this is not a new one, I think, but that role models are very important. And what was very interesting, because there was the leader of the subsidiary was an American, and he was there to close down the company, so nobody trusted him anything. So it was very important that the German higher up leader who worked in Chicago came over to this little town in Germany and to really talk authentically about why it's so important to make this agile transformation. So he was a huge help for us external consultants. Then we we had special trainings for change agents from all hierarchical levels, and the change agents had a little bit of play money to so they could in their departments do something. And when it is to have fancy chairs which are very comfortable or something, so that the people had the visual idea something is changing. We have new chairs. They had an orange and green and all kinds of colors. That's what I already said when we did the breathing exercise. So we really had kind of competitions. So we did this breathing exercises for 2 minutes. Can you also do 4 minutes? Who is able to do 4 minutes? So, and they learned that they really have to practice to come to a state where they can control their thoughts. What also was very interesting was that employees quite often have mindful practices. So we had, there was a member of the union, of the trade union. He was Turkish, from Turkish descent. And then he said, oh, I do some kind of Muslim thing, yeah. And I said, oh, this is mindful. I do it every day. Oh, but I had the impression I do it only for myself privately, and it has nothing to do with my work environment. And so other people were kind of envious. Oh, you do something like that. Can I learn from you? So this was really interesting. And we and how do you bring an agile transformation into a company? It's about how people always have meetings, and how are these meetings? Are they mindful, or are they are you losing time sitting there doing I don't know what, doodle on your pad or yeah. So this was another experience we had, that it's good to start with the meeting culture. Okay, so now time is nearly over, but I hope we can have a few assumptions to discuss. This is a kind of a wrap up of what I tried to tell you. Everybody can be a leader. Mindfulness is key to agile, and it's possible to train it, and it means more. So any ideas?
Harriet, I just want to say thank you very much for some interesting thoughts there. The one that struck me, I guess, was this idea of having to pause and slow down in order to be agile. And I think that's something which is, in the organizations I work for, everything about agile gets translated into just speed and being quicker, without necessarily thinking about why be quicker and having some purpose behind it. So I really like the idea of actually, to be quicker, you sometimes need to slow down and pause. That particular slide really resonated with me.
Thank you. I have to talk to Jeff because I think you get the slides I showed. Yeah, so okay, other experiences.
I agree. I was going to say, I agree with what Paul said. My experience with a lot of businesses is faster, quicker, with less. And the other thing, Harriet, that you've got me thinking about is when we talk about mindfulness with employees, actually having a conversation with them about what they may already be doing outside of work that's mindfulness, but they just don't think of it that way. So I'm sort of thinking about people who might do yoga, you know, different things, prayer, obviously, and meditation, but we tend to think of it as being, you know, sitting, feeling your feet, feeling your arms, and a lot of people are quite dismissive of it, I think, particularly in Western society. But when you stop and think about what you may do, even just when people daydream in a meeting, if they're actually doing that in a more mindful way rather than a daydream, and just, yeah, so I thought that was quite rich to go and have a think about.
Thank you. Yeah, interesting.
I agree with what Paul and Jackie have just said, but on top of that, I think there's also that view of looking after yourself a bit more. I'd forgotten about Peter Drucker and his quote about looking after yourself. I saw it many, many years ago, and I think that's probably the thing that I'm going to pull away from this. I do a lot of these things without thinking about them, and actually to put them into a bit more practice, and that VUCA, I think that's quite important as well, and I'll use that model a little bit more, particularly in the current environment we're in, because we're going to have to be incredibly agile, but do that in a measured way. So going back to what Paul was saying about slowing down, my personal experience recently with the COVID-19 is very much you had to make very fast decisions, and I sort of took a bit of an authoritarian view in terms of leadership through that process. And actually reflecting on it, I think if I'd have been a bit more mindful around it, maybe some of the decisions I made right at the very beginning that I then had to change wouldn't have been made. So there's a bit of personal reflection there as well around taking that mindfulness to the next level. And absolutely that slowing down thing, Paul, I think that's, yeah, it's very counterintuitive, that, isn't it? You would expect to actually speed up with agility, but actually slowing down, and that's definitely something, that's my big thing to take away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Yeah.
I'm coming from a health kind of role, so obviously there's a lot of things that have had to happen with the COVID here, so we're trying to plan to support leaders and managers following COVID-19. So I think saying what David, there's going to be a lot of lessons that we're going to have learned from this, which is going to be really useful to discuss in a very kind of supportive way, which we're going to have to try and facilitate. But I really like the bit on what comes to mind when we think of a leader, because I think we've learned a lot over this period of time as to, you know, we've all like got in with an impression of what a leader and a manager does, but actually coming out of it, I think we're going to have a very different view of what that is. And then looking at kind of how we can support people to think of everybody in the team as a leader of themselves, and then that's just going to feed into a much better kind of culture. And I think trying to unpick all of that will really help using that example. So thank you.
Okay, so I got 2 chats from people who had to leave. So I think we leave it here, and say thank you to you from Munich, my city. And yeah, it was I appreciated very much talking with you. I think it was interesting, and I really feel kind of blessed that you took something from this. So thank you very much. And
Harriet, thank you very much.
Thank you, Harriet. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.